Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
The students are going to join.
Yes, ma'am. We are informing. Just 5 minutes. Students are joining. Can start the class now.
Can I start?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Okay, so just a minute. Give me 5 minutes.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, good afternoon, students. If you remember, yesterday we were speaking about cybersecurity, and we discussed about certain kind of threats in the cybersecurity digital landscape. Today, we're going to talk also about the various kinds of, cybersecurity case studies, and also we're going to continue with start the session with dark web, which we started yesterday. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen in case any one of you have any question. So you can always tell me. You can put in the chat box also. Okay. So I think you can see the screen now. Okay, so yesterday we were talking about the landscape of cybersecurity. What are the threats? We spoke from two perspectives. One was that individually, when we are on internet, when we are downloading some kind of a application, web application or desktop application, what kind of threat do we face? We spoke about different kinds of threat which organization face, like malware, ransomware, spyware, then cryptojacking. We also spoke about different kinds of other kinds of the cybersecurity threat for an organization, and how organization lose a lot of money on that. Like for example, BEC, the email kind of attack on. So all these attack, and we also spoke about how these can be dealt by the organization and at an individual level. So today we're going to focus on, we start with the dark web. We will see some case study on certain kind of big companies, what kind of threat they have faced, and what happened after that. Okay, so we're going to start with that. Let's start with the dark web. Yesterday, students, if you remember, I told that the dark web is a collection of websites that operate in shadowy corner of the internet, right? So where they can be accessed using any kind of a secure anonymous connection. Okay, so the big amount of people actually don't know about the internet is divided into three categories, right? You might be knowing it, but we all, just give me a few seconds, right? Just have to do something on my slide. Give me a few seconds. Just give me a few seconds. I'm just suggesting my internet, it's switching off, so I have to just keep on doing certain things so that it comes. Yeah, now it's fine. Okay, I'll share the slide again. Sorry for that. Okay. So I was in dark web. I was telling you that how the dark web is existing, but there are a lot of people, students who don't know about that. The internet is basically divided into three categories. So there are surface web, deep web, and dark web. So today we will discuss about these three categories. First one is called the surface web. The surface web is the normal web which is visible for all the users using internet. So the website on the surface web is indexed by search engine like Google. So Google is a great example of that because it almost has a monopoly. So user can open this website, gain information by directly going to the URL or by going through Google or any search engine. And the interesting thing is that the surface web is only 4% of the area of internet. Again, I'll repeat, it is just the 4% of internet what you see. Then next comes the deep web. The deep web is a secret web which is not visible for a normal user on a normal browser. The deep web consists of websites or any page on the websites which are not indexed by search engine. You all know how indexing happens in search engine. So I'm not going to elaborate on that. So the user can only access if she or he has a authorized person to access it and has any permission like URL, username, password. So deep web is used to store most personal information like cloud storage, any organization, personal data, military data like defense and all. Then comes the dark web. But now this is the when the name dark web come, everybody think about the dangerous part of the internet, right? Which is also called dark net. So dark web, everybody thinks dark web is illegal to use, and all the criminal activities are act upon dark web. The criminal activities like drug dealing, killing humans, terrorism, and all those. So the user can only access it if the user has Tor browser. Yesterday I was talking about Tor browser, if you remember. So the Tor mean the onion router. It can make layer of many IP address, and the user serve the internet, right? So this is the surface web, this is the deep web, and the dark web, which I was talking about. So dark web is very secure, very anonymous websites, and we can access this only using Tor. Right? I was telling you about Tor yesterday. I will speak about Tor again today. So it can make the Tor makes many layer of many IP address, and user serve the internet anonymously. That means your IP address, who's accessing that particular website, from the IP address, we can find out like the location, the computer, or everything we can find out because every user on internet has a unique IP address. But here in this case, you cannot find it, mask your IP address. So many dark websites are banned by Tor, but the dark web is totally not very clear to many people, right? So when somebody asks me that is it totally illegal for bad thing, yes, 70, 75, 80% of dark web is of full of criminal activities. But still, there are certain activities which are legal and certain organization which has to use the dark net to carry out certain things. Okay, so the dark web, again, as I said, is a collection of websites that operate in a shadowy corner of the internet where they can be accessed using a secure anonymous connection. And the network of collection is also called the Tor network. So there are two major benefits to use Tor. First, user can access normal website in completely anonymous fashion. That means, suppose if I use Chrome and I go to Chrome, google.com, I will go to the google.com, but my IP address will be tracked, right? It will not mask my IP address. But if I use Tor and go to the same google.com, which is a surface web site, it is not in darknet, I can access through Tor also. But what will happen is the difference is it is going to mask my IP address. And the second advantage is the website owner can build hidden sites that they can host anonymously. So at a very basic level, dark website run just like any other website on internet. The process and the technology is same. The creator of the site will build a web server, either using a physical hardware or a computer hosting services. This server runs a normal operating system like Windows, Linux, and has a web server software running on it, and it allow all the user requests on the web page. So this is the same thing how you build a website for your business and organization on normal net. Similar way, you use the same process is used to build a site. Only the thing is, it is hidden and anonymous. So when the user want to access a normal site, what happens? They simply connect to the website over the internet. Their computer look up at the IP address of the website they like to access, then opens a connection to the site server. Then the site send back page at the user request. The user know where the website is located from that IP address information, and the website also know the IP address of the user and can store that IP address information in their log file for later analysis. This is a normal surface web access process of that. But when you use a dark web, you replace the internet, so shown in this particular diagram on the slide, with Tor network. Okay. So how you do that? So this is how in the Tor. This was a normal website. When a user sent a request and they get the IP address, they store the IP address in the log file and they reply the web page. So when in the dark web, what happens is the same process, but in this process, the you replace the internet, with the Tor network, and Tor network actually run over regular internet, but replace the direct connection between user and the web server. So you have a maze of encrypted connection between two, user and the web server, which the web server where you want to access that server. So Tor user can access any website on a normal internet using the Tor browser. For example, let's say that the user want to access Google, and they can simply type google.com on the Tor browser address bar, and request is then routed through the Tor network to Google server. It will go to the Google server only. But what will happen is, in this case, the user is not directly accessing the web server. It is going via the Tor network. This request will be routed via the Tor network to Google server. And when Google receive it, Google does not know the real IP address of the user here, the end user. Instead, Google simply know the return address on the Tor network. This address will be shown, not the user IP address. And the Google server can respond to the user with that Tor address, and traffic is then routed again through the Tor network. Okay. So in addition to accessing normal internet site anonymously, Tor user can also access secret websites that exist on the dark web. Yesterday, I gave you some example of that. These sites are called hidden sites. Okay. And this hidden site use the Tor network in two directions. One, the website doesn't know the true identity of the user who is trying to access it. At the same time, the user does not know the identity of the website. So there is a two-way anonymity. That means you don't know who's accessing, his IP address is masked, and also the user does not know the site which he is accessing. So that's called the hidden site, students. Okay. Now the question comes: who uses the dark web? Is it legal to use? Every time when we talk about dark web, that will be the first question which comes in our mind. Can I use? Is it legal or not? So the dark web seem like everybody know that it seems like a shadowy place, a bad place for criminal activity, and the domain which is exclusive for the criminals. But in fact, one of the major use of the dark web, that is the criminal activity. But anonymous web traffic attract criminals who seek to engage in transactions while hiding their identity. That is truth. Right? So the hidden website offer, for example, one example I will show you. Okay. I don't have Tor, and I'm not promoting you to use the Tor. You can use it for normal purpose, but I'm just telling you something which I found and I got it from the internet, that the hidden website offers to sell. This is one website which sell counterfeit euros in transaction where identity of both the buyers and sellers are protected. So these are illegal transactions on the dark web. The seller here is requesting the payment in Bitcoin and the anonymous cryptocurrency. You know, of course, the buyer is going to need to provide a shipping address for the fake bill, and that provide a way to trace a transaction to a physical location. So that is possible. But the seller will remain always anonymous. So criminal activity is the highest profile use of dark web, not 100%, but highest profile use. It is immediately what people think of when they consider the potential for totally anonymous communication. So there are also perfect legitimate use of dark web, as I said. So for example, the Washington Post, by Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, he has bought a Washington Post. So the Washington Post operate a hidden site on the Tor network. This site, of course, is not trying to be anonymous itself. You can see the Washington Post logo right there. You can see here. Okay. The purpose of this site is to provide news sources with a way to securely communicate with Washington Post journalists without revealing their identity and remaining safe from eavesdropping. That is also one of the use, where you are legally using the dark web to keep some of your process hidden and confidential. You don't want to make it public, right? So this the use of the dark web helps individual protecting their identity from preying eyes. Dark web is also used to help bypass government censorship in the region of world where normal internet access is restricted. Okay, so certain places, for example, North Korea and all those places, user who access the Tor network can bypass government firewall and content filtering to access the internet without the oversight of government authorities. So dark web also provide a place for free discussion of political ideas, other sensitive issues without the fear of somebody eavesdropping or without the consequences that it can lead to something. So for example, many dissident groups are known to use a dark web to communicate with each other while evading direction by oppressive government. So there are a lot of journalists, a lot of sites, journalism site. For example, we have free journalism now, where most of the journalism are crowdsourcing in the journalism, where most of the journalism come and discuss about several scam, like for example, Panama scam, Pandora scam. So they come on the dark web and try to discuss that so that they don't fall into the prey of any opposing, bodies or organization. So the bottom line is the dark web provide many different groups of people with the ability to communicate anonymously over the internet. So this anonymity is used to protect either a media source or government censorship, evading government censorships, or even engage in criminal activity. And the underlying technology is same. Okay. So 80% you can still say it is for criminal activities, illegal activities, but 20% exist, which is legal. And there are a lot of government sites also when they have to, like defense, when they need to, communicate something anonymously so that nobody can find out, they also use that route. So what are the hidden sites and two-way anonymity? I just use this word, students. Hidden site and two-way anonymity means sender and receiver. The user, end user, and the server who's serving the request. Both are anonymous. So hidden sites are one of the most well-known service provided by Tor. They are what people generally refer to when they speak of the dark web. Hidden sites are web server running on internet that route all of their communication through Tor network. User wanting to access a hidden site connect to it through Tor, but they can access it in indirect fashion that provide two-way anonymity. User does not know the true IP address of the hidden site, and the hidden site also doesn't know the true IP address of the user. From both the side, you get anonymity. Okay. Now to create this link, hidden site use special URL, which is also called onion addresses. Okay. And the onion addresses is generated, which is in the form of alphanumeric address. It is not like www.google.com, www.amazon.com. It will be a kind of an alphanumeric address, which the user should know to access that website. Okay, so that is uniquely defined, that uniquely define the web server and takes the place of a normal domain name. So we don't have a normal domain name like a company name. Okay, so look at more at the this about you can read about this onion address in internet a lot about that. You can also find out something, and if you're using Tor, you can access that. So a user need to know the onion address, which is in the form of alphanumeric, like a coding URL, okay, of this hidden site to access it. So first, like I have shown it here, this is one onion website, and all ends with they don't end it with the extension .com, .org, .ac, .in. It ends with .onion. So you need to know this, which is like a code, okay? And so they build a first how let's see how a person create a hidden site. First, they build a web server, just like they would do if they were building a normal web server on a regular internet. Then they install Tor software on the web server to ensure that it is able to communicate over the Tor network. Next, okay. Next, what they do is so the administrator select a set of Tor nodes on the Tor network, which will act as an introduction point for the hidden site, as shown here. So these nodes are the location that will serve as a public face of the hidden site. Okay. And one more important note here, for simplicity's sake, I just drew an arrow, key. If you see here, this arrow key from the hidden site to the introduction point. So in reality, when the hidden site communicate with the introduction point, it does so through a Tor circuit. So introduction point does not learn the true identity of the hidden site. After completing the selection of introduction point, the hidden site registers the onion database where it obtains a unique onion addresses, registered its introduction point. Anyone wishing to access the hidden site can then go to the database, find the introduction point for the site of the onion address. At this point, the hidden site is up and running, waiting for the user to connect to it. Now this is how you create, the hidden sites. Now we'll talk about how do you access hidden sites. So once a hidden site is up and running, it is available for the user to access. And the user do this through a very fairly complex process, which will protect the anonymity of both the user and the server, which I told you, two-way anonymity. First, the user must know the onion address of the site they wish to access, and which I told is in the form of alphanumeric. They might learn this address on standard internet or directory of the hidden sites. They look up at the address in the onion database and learn the introduction point for that hidden site, which I told you. So next, the user browser select a Tor node, okay. Tor, so they basically what they do is they select a Tor node to serve as rendezvous point for connection. This node will not know the identity of the user or the hidden site, but it will serve as a relay of all communication between the user and the hidden site. So the user browser then creates an introductory message disclosing the location of the rendezvous point and secret key. So message is encrypted using a public key, right? Belonging to the hidden site. Okay. And it's stored in the onion address. The user browsers also create a Tor circuit to the introduction point and deliver the message there. The introduction point then built a Tor circuit to hidden site and deliver the message, which include the location of rendezvous point. Okay. So once this is complete, the hidden site and the user both build connection to the rendezvous point and they can communicate anonymously. This is how it is accessed. That's a very complicated process, but these steps are all necessary to preserve the anonymity of both client and server. In reality, the whole process happened behind the scene in the background. So we are back in the Tor browser now again. Okay, I'm going to talk about that again. So let's say I want to access a privacy search engine. All of you know about DuckDuckGo. On through Chrome, you can go to DuckDuckGo, which is a surface web. But when I want to go to a DuckDuckGo hidden website on dark web, I have to type the onion address of that site. And somehow I tried to find out, and I got to know from some of my friends in the cybersecurity department, and they gave me this. And the address is 3G2UPL. If you want, I can put that in the chat box and you can sometime try. And if you have a Tor, you can go to the site. Okay. I never tried it, but you can just go. I just took a screenshot of that. So I'm going to just put the onion address of DuckDuckGo. So I just put it on the chat box. You can just see that, students. Any questions so far? Okay, fine. So this is a hidden site, which I'm showing you through Tor. Okay. When this hidden site get loaded, students, a lot of activity take place. And the browser follow all the steps which I told you, from introduction point to rendezvous point, and communicate through the introduction point. Then they build up a Tor circuit, and then through the rendezvous point, they build up an anonymity from both the side, user and the server side. Okay, any question? Okay. So this is the DuckDuckGo site, if you can see. This is on Tor, dark network. Okay. Now let's look into some of the cases, and then we will discuss some of the technical point of view from cybersecurity. So this is a very interesting case. We all know about Sony Picture Entertainment, one of the biggest MNC company. In 2014, Sony Picture Entertainment was hacked by a group which was believed to be working or operating from North Korea. What they did, they stole huge amount of information from the Sony network, and they leaked that information to the journalist. And there were a lot of embarrassing things like a social security number, salary of all the employees, many things. Sony employee had said to each other that it was very embarrassing for them. And the hacker used one of their website called Pastebin, and they, publicized all the things that were there. What happened then one day, how they got to know about it? Because one day when all the employee came to their office in a regular time, and when they switch on their computer, their system, they found a screen, a kind of a poster on their screen, which were not allowing them to operate. It was a ransomware. Remember, I told you about ransomware, where they abduct your or steal your certain information, and they threaten you to send or publicize that information on the net if you are not giving them some money or whatever they ask for it. So this was a message which was shown on the Sony's website, and it says hacked by GOP. GOP means these people who call themselves as guardian of peace. And if you see, there's a warning. We had already warned you, because before that they sent warning, but people thought that, and they released certain information about the Sony on the Pastebin site. But Sony, what was this for? So what they did was they also released some unreleased movies of Sony. So the case became so strong, and that they have to even the president at that time of US, President Obama, they also thought that it is some kind of a terrorist attack. Initially, the government thought that it is from North Korea, but North Korean denied it. What was the reason for this? The reason was not money. The reason was basically a movie called The Interview. You can see it's a comedy movie. It's online. And this particular movie has shown two journalists. It's a comedy movie. Two journalists, trying to, uh, basically, just give me a second. I'm getting some call. So, yeah, sorry. So, the interview was a comedy movie which was produced by Sony. It has shown two journalists, Seth Rogen and James Franco, who tried to score an interview with the North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. And before this, they were being contacted by Central Intelligence Agency, which has asked them not to just conduct the interview but kill him. Right? It has the movie include a lot of graphic slow motion sequences where Kim is killed, where his helicopter explode, engulfing his body in fireball. You can see that one of the scene I have created here. I've shown you here. And they wanted this movie not to be, shown in the theaters. And they said that it should not be screened in theaters in the US. They wanted. So the Sony employee all their private data, terabytes of private data, original copy of many data, like salary information, employees information, so many informations were actually hacked, and they put it on the public website, and they also threatened them to delete it. They had that kind of access. And this leak started and went on for several weeks. And the hacker posted several wave of files stolen from Sony on the thing, like including the 5 Sony movie which were unreleased. And Sony lost huge revenue because of that. And including some of the information like salary, performance data of the employee, social security number, their addresses, all those details. So ultimately what happened was that the Sony was such a big company, and it was not the first time it was happening. Sony basically, alleged even the US government came into action, and they alleged North Korea behind it. But North Korea gave a statement saying that, we know this has happened and we are not responsible for this, but we are happy this happened because their leader was shown in a bad picture in this movie. That's how the thing was shown. And later on, the Obama said, we are going to release this movie in the theater. We're not going to bend down on the Cyber Terrorism Act. This is also one form of cybersecurity threat, cyber terrorism. And they didn't give up. They have screened the movie in the theaters. Then they also threatened that they're going to blast the theaters, but nothing happened. A lot of security. And US went ahead and did that. But think about the company, how they have lost a lot of revenue in this process. Okay, just give me a few seconds. Okay. Now, one more case I'm going to tell you. This is a case about Uber. Uber, the cab company. You all know that Uber doesn't own any cab, especially in India. It's a kind of an IT company which tried to create through technology the driver with the rider. And their head office in Petersburg, the Steel City. So the CEO in 2017 disclosed that there was a cyber attack. And this cyber attack was from late October 2016, and it basically breached the personal information of 57 million customers and drivers. Okay. And the Uber employee, it was basically, the statement was passed that it is basically the Uber employee who have done kind of a mistake, and because of that, it's happened. But what the background, the company former CEO had resigned actually in 2017 because of this kind of thing. The company also revealed the hacker responsible for this, they had to pay them $100,000 to delete the data and keep the breach, quiet. Subsequently, the company were accused of concealing the breach and criticized for all over the media, all over the places for failing to notify the affected individuals and the regulator about that. So they just blamed two employees in 2016 for this incident and they fired them. One was the CEO. And company had paid more than $100,000 million to settle this issue. And they have not. And this happened in Europe. And the company entered into an agreement with those people that they can delete and hide the data and they should just take the money. And so this such a big IT company had suffered from this. And this case became a very big case. A lot of people came out, Uber paid, they started talking about that, how can Uber pay so much of money, and how the your data, like rider data and the driver data from their license to their address and to the history, traveling history, the location where they have traveled, everything was hacked. So these are few cases, but there are empty number of cases which we find every day on internet or maybe on the newspaper, on the media, which where the big companies have suffered. Now let's talk about India. There are a lot of cases in India also where we have suffered. One was the Aadhaar card, with the software was hacked and the certain, kind of media reported like HuffPost and all. It said that the Aadhaar database, which contained the biometric and personal information of billions of internet Indians, were compromised by software patch, and which has actually disabled the critical security feature to enroll the new Aadhaar user. And hack of the Aadhaar enrollment software actually created huge, cry in the media, hue and cry in the media. Okay, so now let's look into some of the other kind of terminologies and reports in the cybersecurity. Students, every day we see news report of major companies getting hacked, breached, their data has been breached. You have the Cambridge Analytica case of Facebook. Facebook is still going through trials. Then you have the National Security Agency, Edward Snowden case, the insider job, which we say that sometimes the employees are hand in glove to give access to these people to steal the data just for some kind of financial gain or maybe some kind of other kind of a gain. So there are empty number of cases which are there, and every day there are a lot of individual people. Not only I'm talking only about organization, but individually also a lot of people are affected by this. So, cybersecurity professional, if you are a cybersecurity professional, you can feel that where to focus. Basically, we have certain trusted organization. I'm just giving you this information, which is called OWASP, Open Web Application Security Project. And to narrow down, OWASP stand, it's for decades, this group has been providing resource, conferences, and tool to educate and inform technology professional through security best practices. So if you want to create your career in that, please go ahead and go to this website. Just type on Google OWASP and you will find several ways of tackling with threats. You will also identify what are the new kinds of threat which is happening in cybersecurity landscape. And they publish a list of 10 most common application security vulnerability. So it is also called OWASP Top 10. And they just has released the new version. So we are going to, you can go ahead and you can find out about that. This is how the website look, where you can find all kind of breaches. Year-wise, top 10, for example, breaches in the 2021 and the solution for that. So as a cybersecurity professional, you can do your research work. The students, it's very important that you invest little time in your research. Research is very important in any profession. And research will give you, update you with what is happening in the current scenario. I have also told you in other sessions that try to build a new, unique system, new application, try to come out with a patentship. I have already given you an offer that if you want, I can help you in patent. I just wanted to share something with you. Maybe in the end of the session, I can give you and show you that one of my design patent got published and registered. So let's also talk about certain more concept in cybersecurity world. One very important concept you all should know is called broken access control. I took this from OWASP top 10. So the first thing in 2021, ranked higher on the top 10, was broken access control. OWASP says this exposure occurs when confidential information is viewed by user who should not have permission to access that. That means unauthorized access. So let's break it down. So in order to talk about broken access control, first we should define access control. What is access control? We should understand that. Okay. Now, access control is making sure that people have access to what they're supposed to and don't have access to what they're not supposed to. And the broken access control is exactly the opposite. You have access to the information you should not have. Okay. And what happens when people have access to the information they are not supposed to? This is perfectly way to breach the confidentiality, integrity, availability of the web application. A person with unintended access might be able to read, edit, or delete your private data. Let's explore a couple of different examples. Okay. So the first scenario is when sensitive information is exposed to an unauthorized person. Software is built assuming that different people are going to use it. So each user will have permission that are specific to their user role. Typically, role might include an anonymous user, a visitor, an employee, a content contributor, an administrator, or a developer. Broken access control occur when user is able to act beyond the permission of the role. So you don't have an administrative role in a web application software. For example, as a student, suppose you have built an attendance management system for your college. Now, attendance management system will have an administrative control by the head of the department or maybe somebody who has the access to control, edit, or delete data. But what if the student gets that access? The students will have access only to view the data. But if the student get an access to modify the data, what will happen? Or to see anybody else's data and modify that. So it happens when a user is able to act beyond the permission of their own. So this might be if a web app accidentally share information with the user who are not supposed to have it. Okay. So if I have a social media account and that is private, and the only people that's supposed to see are my friends and family, which I have approved, right? So if someone else goes to my profile and can see all my photos, my kids, my pets, anything, any information I post, that is broken access control. It is also kind of like if someone in the human resource department print out a document that has all the employee performance evaluation, salary increment, and forget to pick up the paper from the printer, leaving it for a plain view for anybody who walks in to see that confidential information. Okay. So the key takeaway here is to make sure that you are not unintentionally leaving the private data around or just anyone to stumble upon the physical or the web. So our second scenario is similar to the previous example. Okay. Okay. So you have access to the information, as I said, you should not have. So As I said, that HR is leaving some paper, and you can unintentionally they have left it, and it is in the public, domain. Oh, sorry, public printer, and anybody can come and see the performance. And isn't it bad? They may go and gossip around. It will become a problem for HR later. Also, if you can consider that if you're at a doctor office and you finish your appointment and you're just waiting for the nurse to bring you a printed summary of your diagnosis and treatment, the nurse comes in and hand you the paperwork and you look at it, and it's actually not yours, it's someone else. Nurse has made a mistake, and now you have access to someone else medical data. Takeaway here is, when you are sending private information, you need to really make sure that you're sending it to the right person. This example might seem kind of obvious, but this is the most common vulnerability in the cybersecurity world in 2021, according to OWASP Top 10. So when we are building and testing new web application, we tend to test the positive path a lot. We don't always consider the alternative path might be and the loopholes in that. People aren't, if we don't take into an account that people are going to do the wrong things a lot more than what we want them to do, it has a potential result in huge problem. So the bottom line is that when you are building a web app, you have to be really intentional about building solid access control into your system. Okay. Now, very important term in cybersecurity world is cryptography. Okay, just give me a second. Just give me a few seconds. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about cryptographic failure, the second uh, top 10 item of cybersecurity threat, which is called cryptographic failure. Cryptography, you know that in WhatsApp also you get a message, end-to-end encryption. So similar to that, So OWSP says the first thing is to determine the protection need of the data when it is in transit or the date when the data is at rest. So what we do, we create password. We have the password, something which we want to protect: credit card number, health record, personal information, business secret. They all require extra protection. So this vulnerability category actually has two parts. The first, the first part recommend that folks who build web application think about the data that's been collected, stored, and used. Data is very sensitive, restricted, regulated, otherwise private, or should be more protected than less sensitive data. So you have to categorize the data: less sensitive data and more sensitive data. Depending on that, provide the encryption. One more important level is that we have to protect data is to encrypt it. That is the way we have been doing it. And second part, recommend that once a decision has been made to encrypt certain type of data, because not all kind of data is encrypted. Today, anyhow, we encrypt all kind of data, like we encrypt even the personal data also after certain incident has happened in the companies. But So the second part is recommend that once the decision is made to encrypt certain type of data, the web app developers follow well-known proven procedure to ensure that encryption is effective. So encryption involves many different steps. So frequently, some people make mistakes when they're trying to implement. So in our digital and our physical life, like we can protect, we can value the most. We value our young children, small kids. We don't leave them alone. I make sure that when you are riding the car, they sit in a protective car seat, the babies. We value your online banking password. You expect that the web app that allow you to bank online, the net banking, is encrypting your password. They give you a virtual password, the virtual keyboard also to do that, to give you more security. Once the decision is being made to protect something of value, steps need to be taken and to implement. If you don't have to store a sensitive data in first place, don't. If your web app needs to process payment, you know, so if you suppose you have developed a web app and it needs to process the payment, consider integrating with payment platform, payment gateways, because they have very secure network, PayPal or PayU Money or Razorpay. They can handle the payment on behalf of you. And if you don't store sensitive data, then you don't have to worry about how to protect it. Secondly, if you're storing sensitive data, encrypt it both at rest and in transit. Okay, that's very, very important here. Okay, students. Okay, so I was still here. So as I said that, if you remember, if you have analyzed that which are the data which require more security and very sensitive, you cannot afford to get it leaked. So you can encrypt those data on both the condition, at resting condition when it is stored in server and when it is in transit. Third is if you are encrypting data, use a strong cryptographic algorithm. For example, MDF is a weak algorithm and it should not be used, while AES is a strong algorithm which should be used. So full text for vulnerability category in OWASP top 10 also includes several addition technique. So I will encourage you all to read that. Please go through this website. It has a lot of good information. It's going to help you also when you want to apply for a job. Extra information is never bad, you know. Always information is information. It is not too much of information. So the two takeaway here is number one, you have a data that need to be protected in the web app. You should encrypt it. And number two, if you decide to encrypt some data, you follow the best practice. As I said, use the AES algorithm, strong algorithm. Now, the next technology or next cybersecurity thing which we should know is called injection, students. In OWASP top 10 item, the third important threat was injection. Now we will understand what is injection. Now, in computer science, code can either represent a data or an instruction. You all know that, you are all developer. So injection happens when an application accepts data as input and process it as an instruction rather than as a data. So are you understanding? I input a data, for example, the username and password. This is a data. So it should be accepted as input, but it is, and it should be processed as data? No, but if it is processed as instruction, then that becomes injection. OWASP says an application is vulnerable to attack when hostile data is directly used. When one analogy is to consider might be you adopt a, suppose if I want to make you understand this, so this is called injection, when application accept data as input and process it as indication. Okay. Now, I will give you one example and make it simple to make you understand. Let's say you want to adopt a dog from an animal rescue. And you do the paperwork. For paperwork, you have to fill out requires that you give the dog name. What if you suppose the paperwork say give a dog name, when you're adopting. So if you pick a name like sit, because sit happens to be a very common instruction or command that you would ask a dog to obey. So, so when you're calling a dog, the dog will become confused, because when you call dog sit, come here, and then you say sit, so dog will understand whether to sit or to, to basically what to do. So you can't keep a instruction as a name. The dog's supposed to respond to the word sit as though it is name, and it's supposed to respond to the word sit as it is an instruction on what to do. So injection vulnerability occur in web application where there is an opportunity for the user to provide some input and the application handle it incorrectly. So a bad actor could actually inject some malicious code that ends up being interpreted as instruction for the web app to follow. Think about it. Web app asks user for input all the time. So whether you are typing a command into community, who knows? So one version of the injection is there are several type of injection which comes. Okay, so one of the version is called cross-site scripting. So cross-site scripting in which the application does not neutralize user input. This means that application does not somehow make use sure that whatever input is provided by the user is actually safe, legitimate, and in the format that app intended. For example, when suppose you are trying to fill one application for visa, and you have to put your telephone number with country code, and you type a telephone number of India, but put the country code of, let's say, Dubai or any other country, it won't accept it. But if that doesn't happen when you are taking the input from the user, then it is a problem where your injection will happen. So going back to the rescue dog, again, if I have to make you understand that. So if you keep the name of the dog as sit, and which sounds like a command, and is checking the name against the list, you can include certain words like sit, come, fetch. We exclude that. Don't use that name. And this is very common sense. And you will say that, okay, fine, you can prevent a situation where dog is named as sit and interpret it as instruction. So again, when we come back to web app, the web form might ask you sometime for your birthday, sometime the web app may ask you to input the data, to confirm the user input is in the 6-digit. All of you know that. Okay. So, like for example, if you have to input your birth date, they give you a format, MMDDYY. They may also ask you whether it's a short date or a long date, like that. So how do you represent your birth year? Do you want to include a letter, or do you want to include special character? It will not accept the special character in that field. So it will accept a special format of the date as it is instructed. It will accept a certain kind of number of the or alphanumerical details. So injection attack can also be used against web app that connect to backend database in order to carry out the instruction. Okay. So example, this is what I said. Suppose this is not accepted, this is not accepted, and it is accepting it like this. For example, suppose you're creating in your college, registration number, you have a password given as your birth, your birth date. And when you type that, they ask you not to put like this, they ask you to write to this, which is accepted. So, injection attack can be, as I said, it is very big because it is going to violate the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information on the database. So the database are frequently nowadays coded in a language called SQL, structured query language. And a malicious attacker launching a SQL injection attack is attempting to create, read, update, and delete something that they're not supposed to do in the backend. So they take advantage of user input field that does not check to make sure whether the user input is appropriate, correct or not, or valid or not. and it tricked the software application into following that instruction. That's how it happens. Now you understood. So if you don't define your user input and it is not validating the input, what happens? The people, the cyber criminals will put a kind of a instruction in the user infield, and that instruction will carry out, will inject and try to delete or do certain kind. They will act as a bad actors and they will try to trick your application. Now, we will also discuss about something which is greatly discussed by everybody in every field, and that's called privacy. Okay. So let's understand the privacy now. Now, we nowadays we are very much aware and conscious about privacy online, invasion of the privacy, and all these are becoming a very hot topic for discussions on social networking site and media among the groups and all, especially among the students. And you have a lot of privacy when it comes to your household. When you're taking, you don't want your parents to see your phone. You put a lot of password for all apps. You put a lot of kind of technology like your thumbprint, your face, security image. So this aspect of human element of security called privacy and understanding how to protect your information is becoming very important today. Privacy is the purest sense means freedom from protection of something. But how does that apply in terms of cybersecurity? Privacy as related to cybersecurity is protection of your information. The main question around privacy are usually what information of mine is getting collected and stored. Suppose you're on Facebook or you're on Instagram, any of the social networking site which is free of cost. But does anything come free of cost? I always say these social networking sites, you're not a consumer, you are a product. Based on you, they earn their revenue, and their source of revenue is advertisement. So your data becomes their selling point to get there. They don't sell your data, but they use data through your data, they get advertised and they do target marketing. So the main question around the privacy is whether what kind of information is collected and where is my data stored? How is my data being used? Who have access to my data? Who can share it? And so something which we normally nowadays come up with something called the personally identifiable information, PII, the information that is directly related to an individual that may be used to identify them. This can be broken down into two areas, sensitive and non-sensitive PII. The best way to describe non-sensitive PII would be think of it as information that is easily searchable, accessible to anyone, should someone go looking. A simple internet search could provide such information on an individual. This includes, but is not limited to your name, your birthday, even your gender. This information is not worrisome because everybody knows your name. Most of the people will know also your birth date. Your gender is not something which is very confidential. So this information is not very sensitive in nature. Okay, it can be used to. So the that so sometimes this can be a privacy issue for some people, but not for everyone, majority. So non-sensitive PI is easily accessible information. Sensitive PI is information that should not be searchable or easily accessed. Someone should not be able to search for this information online. For example, your Aadhaar card number, your security, social security number, maybe in US and all I'm talking about, your passport number, your driving license, your credit card number, your medical information. So these are all sensitive information for you and you need a privacy in that. So this break down into a number of categories that include but are not limited to social security number, password, all these kinds. So many new laws and regulations have been implemented to help keep companies accountable for protecting this information, because company will take this information from you. Whenever you want to access their information, even if it is free, you have to provide your email ID, your name, your birth date, your phone number, and all this. So there are a certain expectation from the company to protect your information on your behalf. So even with the regulation and law in the place, it is imperative that individuals take their own privacy and PII, both sensitive and non-sensitive, and hold it in high regard to help add an extra layer of protection against information loss and exposure. So you can do so this by thinking before you share information, questioning why information request is needed, removing any social media content that is no longer needed, then updating your privacy setting, searching your name regularly where you can on search engine. I will suggest that, and opting out, removing your information to make it more private. CIA is something which stands for, I want to talk about that. There are certain laws also which is in place. For example, GDPR, General Data Protection Rights, and HIPAA is for medical information. Then PCI is there. There are so many regulations which can protect your certain kinds of data. HIPAA protects your medical data. GDPR gives you certain rights, like, for example, right to question, right to object, right to be forgotten, right? In Europe, it is very strictly implemented from 2019 onwards. And in Europe, any company, you can just object, and you right to ask question, you can write to object to a company and say that you should not be using my personal data for marketing purpose. Then another term which we should be, so this is what I told you. HIPAA, as I said, is a legislation which basically provides security on data privacy, especially on medical information. Then there is a PCI standards for credit cards and for certain Visa cards and MasterCard. Then what about the administrative accounts? The administrative accounts will allow a certain person to have certain kind of privileged access on the web application, right? I just told you that about your, suppose your information or attendance. So somebody will have a right to edit that information. Not everybody. Students won't have that right. Teachers may also not have that right. Maybe the administrative person can do that. So it is very important that you have to know that who are the least privileged people who will have the minimum access to a particular kind of data, and who are the most privileged people who will have the admin right. Then the very important fact, which I yesterday also told you, is about multi-factor authentication. So students, multi-factor authentication is a two-factor authentication, which will add extra layer of security beyond your username and password. So multi-factor authentication, bank, e-commerce site, everybody is using. First is your username and password with which you log into your account. And when you are doing a payment, you require again a OTP, which comes in your email or maybe on your phone. So this is an extra layer of security, basically provided to secure your data. So this way, and sometimes if you forget, there may be some kind of a thing like answering a security question. Sometimes that also happens, like your favorite restaurant, whatever you have chosen, your mother's maiden name. So all these can be a way to give you an extra layer of protection. Okay, something you could be doing to as a security code or badge. Then also I want to use a word which is widely spoken today, and there are many students who are actually taking this particular learning or course, or maybe a kind of a program on computer forensic, and huge scope in the world of job. Okay, so the word forensic, when it comes, it gives us an image of police department. We see on the web series that crime scene investigator, they're taking the evidence from the crime scene, they're taking the handprint, they're taking all kind of blood sample or whatever kind of stuff you see over there. They gather and preserve these evidence for the legal matter. The investigator perform a kind of a technique to identify the DNA or something like that. But what is for computer forensic? So computer forensic investigator employee many software forensic application and technique to examine a copy of targeted system storage media, looking for hidden folders, and unlocated, what you call it, disk space for instances of damage, deleted, encrypted file, somebody deleting file, somebody modifying the file. If investigators find an evidence on digital copy, it carefully record document called finding report. Next step is penetration test. A good way to think of this is similar to how a car manufacturers intentionally crashes their car, with dummy inside in order to find out the issue or a flaws. So when you do a quality check, for example, in automobile company, they randomly pick up one call and destroy it. They just want to see whether the protection is happening or not. And for that, they can't use a human being because if something mishap, the human life is lost. So they do a kind of a quality. Similarly, we do in cybersecurity what something called penetration test, and this is done by a network to find flaws and vulnerability in the very controlled environment before a cyber criminal can find them and exploit. Okay, so findings from such tests allow you to network and environment to harden to create more security. Okay, just give me a second. Okay. Now, very important terms which I want to, so another term which we also understand about, we need to understand is VPN, the virtual private network. So most of the companies are basically using VPN to, when the workers are, IT workers are working from home. Now, all these IT workers are actually, and recently it happened with my daughter who was working in Accenture, and she has developed code, and when she has developed the code and send it, and she has to develop a part of the code in a team and send it, because she was working from home, to the team, and the other team will do, and ultimately they'll combine and they will develop a web application or some application for the client. Her part of the code was deleted, and the place where it was stored, it didn't reach there. That was a kind of a investigation result which came on, because she thought that she has stored in the place where it has to be stored in a server, secure server, but it didn't get. So they ultimately came to a conclusion that when she was sending that particular code while it was in transit, it got deleted by somebody. It can happen. It can be by some employee also because of professional jealousy. Point what I want to make here is that now the company is becoming very, very secure. They have the culture of working from home, the virtual workplace has become so common and so popular that, but at the same time, there is an issue related to that, which is security. When a worker is working from home and they transfer the data or any confidential information, the network need to be secure. So now the companies are using VPN, private tunnel, to communicate any confidential information between the employee and the server, so that these problem doesn't happen, right? The second very important part is firewall, which will, firewall, as I told you, like a security card, which will monitor both your incoming and outgoing traffic to your server. And anything suspicious, it will not allow, it will permit access. And it will not permit unauthorized access to any kind of thing. Okay. Now, if you look at the scenario now, students, India is spending around $3 billion. It has already spent $3 billion on cybersecurity in 2022. Right? We are actually using IT Act 2000. There's a lot of changes, a lot of upgradation happening. And maybe we might think that India is not, but India is way ahead in a way in their cybersecurity framework. There are a lot of new laws, new regulations coming in pictures. A lot of threat is being identified. A lot of things are happening. So in 2020 alone, but there are, again, we also suffer from a lot of flaws, like any other country, like even the most developed country like US are suffering. Just give me a second. Excuse me. So the data breach cost In India, an average 2 million per such events. That means that in 2019, the country spent 2 billion on cybersecurity. And look at which the Indian state has the most cybersecurity cases on record, and where the most of the cyber criminals were, taken. So this is the kind of a article on Forbes that India spends around 2 million on cybersecurity. US it is highest. So India is still better, the cybersecurity threats. So 8.64 million. And globally, it is around 3.86 million dollar is spent on cybersecurity. Right. Some of the cases, if you see here, Domino's has lost around 180 million, where their entire order details of the customer was hacked, and they have to pay a ransom for that in bitcoins. MobiWik, a wallet company, they also lost their user data, 110 million user data. JustPay also lost 100 million user account detail. Air India, they have lost 4.5 million passenger details. These are some cases. And if we look state-wise, the Karnataka actually leads with the highest number of reported cybercrime. Maybe because we have the IT city or the Bangalore, right? Uttar Pradesh leads with the highest number of arrests. So this is some published data which I'm showing you. And the most common threats are hacking, which is 45%, highest one, stealing your data, unauthorized access to the data. Then 22% error. By error, you may send it to somebody or you delete some data. That also is 22%. 22% is social engineering attack, phishing, smishing, which I discussed yesterday. And then 17% is malware attack, which I told you. Malicious software, which try to damage or harm your resources. 8% is misused, which I just told you about, the method where a person, unauthorized person uses this, and 4% is the physical action. Okay, so according to the Forbes, the 51% share of the organization, that they are more likely to pay ransom to the ransomware attack. This is a report which was presented. So how much India spent on cybersecurity 2019, which I already told you, $2 billion. And how much they are going to spend in 2022? Already they have spent $3 billion. So from 2 million, it increased to 3 million. And we still have not over with 2023. We don't know how much they're going to study. So let's take some more cases. Now, there is a very slight difference between, not slight, there's a thin line drawn between illegal activities, which are also called cybercrime, and unethical activities. Unethical activities are those activities which are not illegal because they try to exploit the loophole in the law and regulation. Okay, so I'll give you one case, very interesting one. So there was one app in Europe called Girls Around Me. And there is one very popular social networking site called Foursquare. And it is a location-based mobile service which determined your location. So what happened? This app, as the name suggests, obviously the boys will download this app will allow the user to scan for the women in the area who have recently checked in on the service. Like in Facebook and all, we update our status and we say live status, we are where live location we share. Most of the people have that habit of, you are in some certain place and you want to highlight or you want to brag about it. You basically do that. So when a boy is suppose in a mall and he has this thing, he can see all the girls on Foursquare social networking site who have logged in and checked in their status. So you can identify women, you can also talk to them, you can send message. In a way, you can snoop on them. And also in the Facebook, you can do that. You can see their full name, profile, photo. You can send secretly messages to them when you sign up for the Girls Around Me application. And you're asked to log into Facebook, giving the service your personal information. So after connecting to the Facebook, the app asks everything, requiring people to share their basic information profile. Like in Facebook, it happens. You put your photograph, you put your email ID, you put your every detail, then you put your post, you update your status. So this app was linked to Facebook and Foursquare. So what happened? The founder of this particular, app called Mr. Stark, he was. It is not an illegal app because you can do that. It was because there was no law which said that you can't approach somebody through Facebook, through a social network and send messages. But just think, for girls, it is so scary. The girls will suddenly get a message from a stranger asking for a friend request and asking, saying that some kind of a request. But it was not illegal. And millions and millions of users have downloaded this app. There were a lot of debate on the media about this. People started talking that it is too unethical. Government should do something. But the founder was very confident. He said that I have not broken any law and I'm giving somebody. So in that case, if you say that there are a lot of, like, for example, Tinder and all, that is also unethical. You can say that it is unethical. In a way, I'm saying that. And you never know that who are the actual people who have put their profile, or they are the criminals who are hiding behind some kind of, or creating a fake identity. How do you, who is making sure that there's no crime happening because of this kind of a thing? People can be stopped using that. Okay, I can. So this is the one which basically I wanted to highlight. Then this is a case which is very famous. I think most of you might know it, which is Cambridge Analytica case. So Cambridge Analytica is a political consulting firm based in UK, and they have their office in Washington, DC, and New York. And according to the website, Cambridge Analytica basically does what? They collect and connect data. They collect and connect the data to consult and communicate for political candidates. So they can be hired by a political candidate to help them in their political campaign to win elections. This is their main work. And their work is to collect the data and tell them the trend and how to have a strategy, online strategy, to influence the people to vote for them. Or they may tell them that this may be the perfect way of going for an election campaign. So this is the news in the past where the data mining happened. Data mining means finding data and data, uh, so what happened was, this particular company, Cambridge Analytica, was accused of manipulating the informations to sway the election around the world. And this scandal brought Facebook into a bad picture. Okay. And because what they did is, they, through the open API of Facebook, they gathered personal information about 50 million Facebook profile. Right. And this Facebook profile, Cambridge Analytica didn't have authorization to get this data from this profile. What they did was they stole this information. And they did this to create a system which will target US voter with political advertisement. So today we have this new rule which has come up with, after this only it has come, where the social networking site does not allow political advertisement and campaign. They have the AI or the kind of a technology built to identify that, and they immediately stop. This happened only after this case. So in 2014, Facebook launched a quiz app, which was called Facebook User Question. And according to Forbes article, once the Facebook user used this app and filled out the questionnaire, the app would collect their private personal Facebook information as well as the information on all their Facebook friends. So Facebook allowed this app to mine millions and millions of their user personal data. So they allowed this quiz. Actually, the Cambridge Analytica wanted to conduct this quiz, and through OpenAI, they did that. And it looked very innocent for the Facebook or for the company. But in the back end, what they did was they stole all the 40 million users' information and used it for political advertisement and increasing the. So Facebook was in soup. They were called and they were told that they had turned around the entire election. So this was a very big case. So another report where it says, it's a Poneman report, which says that 1,004 security practitioners working in 2,078 organizations across the world were interviewed regarding the impact of insider threat in the organization. Insider means employees. And each of these 278 organizations had at least one event caused by the insider. And there was total of 6,803 insider incident, which was put in this report. And of the 6,803 insider incident, 56% were related to negligence, where the employee by accident passed the information to someone who not supposed to have, or deleted or modified. 26% resulted from criminal and malicious insider who wanted to gain some kind of financial incentive by passing on those information to somebody who should not have. 18% of this resulted from credential theft, where the employer can find the credential of some user or higher authorities and misuse that. And the report also indicated the companies are spending an average of 85 days to contain a single insider security incident, theft of sensitive data. For many organizations, their trade secrets are now crown jewel. They potentially, so data is a target for criminal and malicious insider who will attempt to sell the data to competitors. So you've heard the phrase "time is money." This thing is especially true in today's age of digital commerce. For companies that make millions of minutes, many downtime, many expensive downtimes can be detrimental to the company. Okay, let me see the time. I was talking about DDoS attack, downtime attack. So sometimes this is happening. Yesterday I told you about this is intentionally done. So there is something called service level agreement. Okay, for the what do you call, the companies do it to make sure that the employee does not do any kind of harm to their data or damage their reputation. Companies will always try to have a IT Privacy Act implemented very strictly. This is also one of the very big case in the history of cyber threat. It's not called as cyber security, but I'm talking about insider jobs. So Edward Snowden case, which is also called whistleblower behind the NSA surveillance, which is the National Security Agency, and it happened in 2013, where the Edward Snowden basically come out with leaked certain information. He fled to Hong Kong, and Edward Snowden was a 29-year-old technical assistant with CIA, and he was employed in the defense contractor, Booz Hamilton, in the National Security Agency, server, and he was in charge of storing the data, and he had access to the data. So what he did, he found that NSA is spying on their citizens. They're not even sparing the small school kid. So most of the electronic appliances were bugged, and this happened especially after 9/11 attack. Everybody was suspicious. Cameras installed with the facial recognition software. There are a lot of things which were happening in US. They were trying to prevent any kind of further attack, and in that purpose, they were spying on their own citizens. Edward Snowden was working with NSA. Found that millions and millions of data were collected from the user, like what you purchased, which movie you saw, everything about you, how many members, even your phone calls were tapped, where you went for vacation, how much you spent, everything was done. So in this case, what happened, the Edward Snowden, when he found it is totally unethical. And he fled to Hong Kong, and he carried all these documents with him. And he went to one of the media and revealed all the data and told the entire world that NSA is basically invading into the privacy of their own citizenship. And without their knowledge, they are collecting data, their personal data, their privacy is invaded. And there were a lot of things which happened. Many people, considered Edward Snowden as hero. Some people treated him as a traitor. So there are two perspectives. One perspective that Edward Snowden is a hero because he told the US citizen that what in an unethical way, US NSA is collecting your data and spying, and everybody is suspicious. You are not, you don't have a privacy, and privacy is a very important right for your citizens over there. So your US only is invading your, personal freedom or privacy. In from the organization perspective, you can say that he was a traitor, because any no employer, even there are a lot of businesses which have unethical way of doing business. Everything is fair in war and business, but that doesn't give a right to the employee to reveal that to the world, because he should be loyal to the company. So again, this is an insider job where the employee should not have revealed the data to the world, whether it is unethical or ethical. That's a question mark. So that become a very, there are a lot of movies made on this. You can go ahead and you can search Edward Snowden case. A lot of documentaries has come out. He is seeking asylum in many countries because he knows that as soon as he goes to the US, he will be killed. He will be destroyed. So he is, basically trying to avoid that. Okay. So again, I'm going to avoid this because this is a little technical. Now, there is something which you people can do. Don't think that we should be only doing AI. And this is called ethical hacking. Very interesting, very interesting. And you don't require any big amount of technical knowledge for that. So the goal of ethical hacking is to help people understand, or organization understand, how to protect their asset. And ethical hacking are the test and procedure you apply to understand the loophole in your system. Okay, to investigate your website, your web application, your servers, and to conduct all kind of illegal activities to try to access your server illegally, and identifying that loophole and helping the company to overcome that weakness, right? So that is called ethical hacking. There are a lot of ethical hackers who are earning. So so the word hacker basically came into use in MIT in 1960. And during that time, a group of computer science students were working on artificial intelligence. Most likely, these talented young individuals hack at a problem until they had a solution. So what they were doing is, they said the term hacker come from there. Over the time has passed, someone has taken that word as negative. And that means that hacker is someone who's trying to break into your system to steal information or to release malware. Okay. So many times someone will group all hackers under the term hacker. But there are three main type of hackers nowadays, students. Black hat, okay, hackers, white hat hackers, and the gray hat hackers. Black hat hackers are considered bad people. They may be referred to as crackers, hackers, cracking the code, cracking the password. Black hat has an objective to cause harm by engaging in criminal activities. Okay, they're criminals. They may operate in dark side in the internet, like dark web and all those kinds. White hat hackers are ethical hackers. The work is to support the government, industry, computer expert by identifying the loophole and weakness and try to help the organization to overcome. So they act as a hacker, try to enter into the system and try to find out if they can do it. So many times, these are all freelance and contractor employees. They're hired by security company. They're hired by, your basically the organizations or government. Their work is to test the system, to attempt to break into them, and then also they can be a part of internal team conducting a regular penetration test to find out how to plan the security. So ethical hackers look for any system vulnerability in the computer defense system, and they can mitigate those activities. Okay, so the gray hat hacker sits between both good and bad guys. They may gain access to a system without permission, in general, but they may not do any harm. Okay, they may help somebody to do that. Okay, like for example, you take a help of a secret investigator. Similarly, you can do the gray hat hackers. There are not many. So these are internally, they may have a kind of a positive motivation or a negative motivation. So ethical hackers enable an organization to fine tune their security, educate their staff, and implement security practice to protect their system and sensitive data. Okay. But in order to become ethical hacker, you have to have that kind of a knowledge. You require advanced security knowledge. You require a knowledge of security weaknesses, vulnerability, remediation options. An ethical hacker job is to identify vulnerability. Ethical hacking can be done either in-house by a trained IT professional or it can be outsourced. Outsourcing can be a little expensive. So sometimes the company may choose to have a hire an ethical hacker on a permanent basis. Okay. So this I have already explained. I'm not going to go more on this. This already I told you now. Let me see the time. Okay, is there any question, students? Yeah. Okay. In dark web also, I want to talk to you about one case. This is the last slide. So in a dark web, there was a very beautiful case study. I want to share it with you. It's called Silk Root founder. Silk Root. This person was caught. He has a e-commerce site, and the name of this founder was Ross Ulbricht. He was a very famous criminal justice, criminal behind the dark web, and the story was very popular on the social media about him. He introduced million of people to the criminal behind. What no no what has happened is there was a what is done is this Albridge had a e-commerce site. Okay, this is Ross Albridge, very young chap. He has an e-commerce site, and this e-commerce site was selling more than 1.2 billion sale, and this was used for illegal drugs and the other products, and it used cryptocurrency to make the payment. So Ross Ulbricht grew up in Austin. He was a very young boy, and he graduated as a computer science engineering. He majored in physics also in the US, and he actually made a lot of video games also. But ultimately, he expertised himself in dark web, and he created something called Silk Road. If you want, you can find out about this in the net. And the Silk Route, he named Silk Route is basically a trade route between Europe and Far East. So he just took this name, and in the dark web, he created a kind of a e-commerce site, and this particular site was selling the illegal drugs and many illegal things, weapons and all. And even they were selling it to the minor who have access to it. They were selling cyanides, gun, and he had created incentive and promotion to enable more people to sell more drugs, dealers on it. He was not acquiring drug. The drug dealers can sell through his site. And he was caught when 6 people died because of drug on the site they have created, and they have bought it. And he ran to Australia. Police arrested him from there, brought him to San Francisco. And from that time, this particular site is not operating. But this is one example of darknet, e-commerce site. Okay. This is how he used to sell. Now he, in the dark web also, used to mask that drug in certain other name. And then you need to know the address. You need to validate it by him. You need to have a unique membership. Then only you can buy and sell. So this is one thing. I'm going to end my session here. Any questions, students? Any questions? No? Okay, then. Let me stop sharing. Okay. Is there any suggestion for the next week session? Because I was thinking that I may take it to cloud computing, AI in cloud computing. We can see that how we can use AI on cloud computing. On AWS, we can talk about that also. if you wish. Okay, then bye. See you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.